Hi, and today we're meeting with Jason Luscombe, and he is going to introduce himself in a couple of minutes. But we've been talking about the ministry opportunities there are in Quebec and in French Canada, pockets of French all across our nation. And so today, listen carefully. I think there might be something here for you. Good morning, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well, Gary. How are you doing today?
You're looking good.
Same to you.
Listen, tell us a bit about who you are and the ministry you do in the District of Eastern Ontario.
Sure. Well, my name is Jason Luscombe. I was a pastor in Eastern Ontario for about 17 years in a suburb of Toronto. And about 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, I came into district ministry where I serve as the assistant to the superintendent for ministry. So that's my official title. And we're based out of Cobourg.
Okay. And you live in that area, or do you live in the Ottawa area?
I actually live in Whitby, which is probably about a half an hour east of Toronto. And Cobourg is about 45 minutes away from that. But in district life, we're on the road a lot, so I'm not always in the office, but that's where I serve, and that's my ministry title.
So, in being in charge of the ministry for the District of Eastern Ontario, and I have to be careful because sometimes I might say District of Eastern Ontario, Quebec, because that's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, just tell me a bit about the general spiritual climate, what you sense in Eastern Ontario to receptivity to the gospel.
Sure. Well, Eastern Ontario has Toronto in it, and Toronto is a real epicenter of culture in Ontario. And we're finding that Toronto is becoming very liberal in its culture, not just its politics, but its culture and its praxis. And that is affecting other areas, other regions. And so what I'm seeing more and more of is a secularization of our culture where, years ago, even if you didn't go to church or were part of a church or anything like that, or were religious, you still had a respect for the church. And that has changed. We see that now on social media, when people are posting different things on what's happening in our day, and churches want to have services and all that. And there's a lot of hostility now towards the church and the things of God, where that didn't always exist before. Having said that, I think that we find ourselves in a real mess right now as a country, and especially as a province. Our province is probably the most locked down in any other province in Canada. And that has caused people to look for hope. So on one end, you've got a very secular area and culture, but on the other hand, you've got people that are looking for hope. And to me, that's where we find ourselves. So I was thinking about this, and it's kind of like the Apostle Paul in Corinth. He came into a very secular culture, and then he just met them at that place where they were at when he talked about the unknown God, that statue.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly where we are right now in Eastern Ontario, is we've got to meet people in that way that Paul did.
So that's great, Jason. Now, you've talked about the Toronto metropolitan area. Now, let's go farther east and closer to the Ottawa area and closer to the border of Quebec. Like my experience over the years of working in French Canada is, in Quebec, you really have to speak French, and 95% of the population speaks French here in Quebec. But I've often ministered in Eastern Ontario, and especially closer to the Quebec border, where I really found it bilingual. I was amazed in some of the churches. I'd be there during the worship. They'd sing 2 songs in French, 2 songs in English, and even sometimes when they were doing their announcement, if the fellow couldn't remember, or the lady couldn't remember what she was supposed to say or he was supposed to say, they'd just say it in English, or they'd say it in French and come back. So I remember speaking sometimes, I would do the same thing. I'd just switch from French and English, French and English. So when I think of all the French people, because there are 10,000 French-speaking people in Canada, and 30% of those live, sorry, outside of the province of Quebec. So, and especially in Eastern Ontario. So I always think that there are ministry opportunities for people who might not be perfect in French, but as long as they sense the culture, the whole French culture permeating. Now, I've talked a lot, but what do you think about that area for for Eastern Ontario?
For sure. Yeah. I should mention, because I was just looking up some statistics the other day, but uh, Eastern Ontario actually has 2/3 of the Francophone community in it. And so that's significant. And as you said, Ottawa and Cornwall, that area there, right along the border, is where it's most dense in terms of the Francophone population. So I would say almost half of the Francophone community in Ontario live there.
Yes.
And the other 20% would be Toronto. So the Ottawa area is extremely significant and great opportunity. And what we're seeing now, Gary, is we're seeing a lot of Africans come, particularly from North Africa, and they're landing in Ottawa because of the French community that already is there. But they're doing a good job of reaching immigrants and Africans, but they're not necessarily reaching the culture that is there. And so there's a great need for people that are already in Canada to help to reach the culture that's already here.
So,
We've got people coming, but we also need to reach the people that are already here.
so what would be the opportunities that you would see for a young person graduating from my Bible college or already in ministry somewhere in Canada? We would offer them for sure our Fit for M program, French intensive training for ministry. But once they've gone through that, what opportunities would you see in the eastern part where you think they could work in Eastern Ontario? You mentioned a few places, but
Yeah.
would the District of Eastern Ontario be open to doing church planting, church ministry, so forth?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, what we're doing now is we're looking for church planters and people that will come with a congregation that wants to multiply. And we're looking for people like that that will help to form a satellite or a different expression of a church that isn't, currently helping to meet the needs of the people that are in their community. And so we're all looking to multiply, but we've got to find the people that will lead that. And that sometimes is the challenge, because people come out of our Bible colleges, at least in ours, in Eastern Ontario or Western Ontario, and they want a certain type of position, certain type of church. So we've got to get back to finding missional people that will, have that kind of a heart and a mentality in their own country, and be able to go to places that aren't as established. I was thinking about this, Gary, 2 days ago, that I travel to so many of our churches now in Eastern Ontario, and when I hear their story of how they were founded, most of them were founded by entrepreneurial people that have evangelism gifts, that went into a community, that established a work, and then handed it over to a pastoral gift to then care for it and to grow the church and establish it. That's very New Testament. And we've got to get back to that. So we need people like that, that districts can come alongside and help fund and help resource, help encourage, connect to other congregations. But we've got to find those evangelistic, apostolic people that are willing to go. So if you've got people there like that are willing to go, there are regions around the Ottawa area and urban centers in Toronto that we desperately need to start.
So, Jason, this is your 25 cents now. You can speak to somebody and say, if you're considering ministry, what would you say to somebody who is considering, they're out of Bible college or they're just young in ministry? What would you say to them about considering, especially at least a portion of French ministry in your district?
Wow.
Speak to them.
When I first graduated Bible college, to be honest with you, I was very entitled. I was a worship leader. I did travel team. I did all this stuff. And a lot of people said, oh, you're going to get out, right away and get into a large church and all of that. And I had that in my mind, and it seeped into my heart. And what happened was I lost the mentality that I'm a servant of God. And one opportunity came my way in Toronto. And I went down, met with the pastor, wonderful man. I would love to work with him today, if I had the chance to go back. But I said no, because it was in the city. I couldn't picture myself, living there, affording that, raising a family. It was all of the me stuff. And I lost sight of the mission to go. And because of that, God had to reorient my heart. And it took 9 months, but eventually he did. And I've been able to redeem, but as I serve the Lord and say, God, wherever you call me to go, I'll go, he's opened every door. So I would say, in answering your question, to anyone that's pursuing ministry or going in that direction, you've got to go back to, I think it's Luke chapter 9, when a man came up to Jesus and said, Lord, I'll follow you wherever you go. And then Jesus warned the man and just said very honestly that foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. But then he called two others, remember that?
Yeah.
And they gave these excuses.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. And so we've got to be people, if you've got a calling on your life, you've got to remember that you go where Jesus calls you to. And if you're willing to do that and be obedient to his call, know that he's going to show up there with you. He's going to provide for you. And not only are you going to be cared for and provided for, but God's going to be in the midst of you because he's got a calling on your life to do what he's asking you to do. So do that courageously and with confidence.
Wow, so good, Jason. Really, really, what a great way to end this interview. I really appreciate it. And so, Jason, if somebody would sense a call to work with the Eastern Ontario, would they contact you, or could you give us your email? And
Sure. Yeah, my email is jluscombe at eod.paoc.org. And I would probably be the best person in terms of first contact in our district just because of my portfolio. I work with multipliers, I work with missions and all of that. So even if I'm not the person inevitably that helps someone, I'm a good first contact person to help have a good conversation, and I'll help steer them wherever they need to go. And we'll see how the Lord's leading them and how we can partner with them.
okay, great, Jason. And so thank you for being with us today, and want to richly bless you in your ministry. And we'll talk to you soon, I hope. May the Lord richly bless you.
Thank you, Gary. It's been good to be with you today.